Are you really listening? My definition of a conversation is an exchange of ideas between people. Exchange means that the other person has to be listening, and so do you. Out of curiosity, when is the last time you felt really listened to? It's crazy. When I ask that question, most people have to really think about their answer. Most of the time, we don't feel listened to, especially at work. The art of listening begins with not talking. Silence is the space you leave for the other person in a conversation. When someone first answers the phone, their brain is typically still on what was going on before they answered. Give them a moment. If you've asked insightful questions, that silence allows your prospect to develop their answer. It also gives them time to speak. A sales conversation is not a presentation. Don't make it into a monologue. Interrupting annoys everyone. And on the phone, it's especially tough because you can't see what's going on in their world. Instead, leave a little extra time to make sure that they've stopped their thought and are done before you talk again. Also, it allows them to share. After asking a question, give them the opportunity to answer. That means you have to ask one question at a time and stop talking between them. It's amazing what happens when we give people time to share. They tell us more than we could ever imagine. Which means we have to begin by giving them our attention. Listening is a verb. The action it takes is mental. Merriam-Webster's second definition of listening is to hear something with thoughtful attention. But there's a lot going on in your mind and your prospect's mind as you're talking. A lot of people forget that if you're talking to yourself in your head, you cannot possibly be listening to what's going on coming from the other person in the conversation. Now, a lot of people think listening is only about tone of voice and words. I've seen a lot of ways that communication can be broken down: 55% nonverbal, 38% tone of voice, 7% words, which I guess means a penny for your thoughts isn't far off if they're only worth 7 cents on the dollar. On the surface, it seems that on the phone, we must be missing the boat. It's amazing we can get anything accomplished as inside salespeople if we only have 45% of communication at our disposal. Now, of course, we all know that's not true. Let's think about the other 55%. Yep, listening for nonverbal communication. I believe if we're listening intently and are completely present in a conversation, we can hear the nonverbal messages our customers and prospects are sending. Need an example? Eye rolling, exasperation, distraction, leaning forward in anticipation, lack of organization. Facial expressions like smiling or grimacing or looking up can also be heard. You can even hear gestures. I don't know. Air quotes is my favorite example of making gestures like you're in front of a person in the room. Why? Because the cadence, tone, inflection, and pace of what you're saying changes when you do the gestures that you would do if you were talking to someone in person. But perhaps the 3 most important things to remember are: listening is a skill, it takes practice. Silence doesn't have to be uncomfortable. You're giving them space to share, and knowing yourself makes it easier. And remember, listening isn't actually free, it's priceless.